Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday morning, April 2nd. Congratulations to the Villanova Wildcats on their trouncing of that team from up north. I will not say their name in deference to my wife's rabid hatred of them, except when it comes to them being the only Big Ten team left in a tournament. Then she seems to be a fan. But congratulations to Jay Wright and our, Dominic Diacono, whatever the hell his name is, the redheaded kid from Nova, who was just raining down three-pointers last night. Villanova is a class program, and since the restructuring of the Big East, we're a little bit of a chip on our shoulder to congratulate those small Catholic colleges from the north who seem to, year after year, put up a quality program and do it right and do it clean. Knock on wood, hope nothing ever comes out about Villanova. I wouldn't see it in the Jay Wright era, but hat tip to them. And now that the season's over, I can get back to my vitriol hatred of those guys and Georgetown and Creighton and Butler and everybody else in the Big East besides my Big East Friars. But, so, topic du jour of the day on the marketing and advertising front. So, watching the Big East program, or rather the NCAA tournament, and sitting in a room with a bunch of people doing that, namely my children, ranging from 6, 12, 16, my wife, won't mention an age, and myself, and periodically my oldest daughter's friends would be over watching the games with us. Every time a commercial would come on, I looked around the room, and my kids' eyes were glued to their devices, whether that been the iPad for my 6-year-old or the teenagers. And the teenagers you want to pay particular attention to. The teenagers were on social media, primarily two platforms, Snapchat and Instagram. But they were not looking at the commercials, nor for the majority of the time was my wife looking at the commercials. And I find that interesting because having worked for Pepsi and Nestle, Pepsi in particular, that spent ungodly amounts of money on their TV advertisements, in the billions of dollars. I cringe when I try and estimate how much money advertisers paid last evening to be in prime time for the national championship, when the majority of the watchers, that's probably not a marketing term, but the viewers, were, when it came to commercial break, looking at their devices. So those big companies and their advertising departments, which, by the way, are still run by people probably my age and older, 48 and older, are putting out product, i.e. advertisements, that are not being watched. And that I find interesting. My demographic would have been on Facebook. I know my wife, when I looked over her shoulder, was on Facebook responding to stuff. Yet, when I looked at her feed, there was no references to Big East basketball, or to the NCAA tournament, nor were there any advertisements, that I saw on national television that were then therefore on the social media platform that my wife and my kids were looking at. So clearly there's a disconnect between professional marketers and advertisers to where the consumers are. So I would challenge anybody in business, whether it be small business or big companies, when they're looking at advertising, they probably should be stepping away from radio and probably stepping away from TV and spending more of their dollars on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if they say that's nonsense, they probably haven't spent a dime on it or been astute enough to look around the room and look at the consumers and where they're spending their time. Now, if they further push back and say, hey, it's only kids looking at that, they obviously haven't, spent any time with somebody in the 30 to 40 demographic, nor are they looking at their children from a long-term standpoint. What I mean is the consumers, and this is shameful for a consumer product company like Pepsi if they're guilty of it. If you don't look at those 16, 18, 20-year-olds as viable dollars from a spend standpoint, you're missing a long-term viability of building loyalty to your brand and to your customer base. So I know there's always a natural tension between spending an ad dollar and getting a conversion and a dollar from an income standpoint. But when you're building brands and brand loyalty for the long term, you have to go where the consumers are and provide that value. So I'm wrestling with how I do that today in my own advertising spend. I've backed off Google AdWords because I believe that the consumer, i.e. the people who go to Google and do the searches, have become smart with regard to those people who will pay to be at Google, and their dishonesty in terms of some of the representations that are being put forth about how long they've been in the business, or their success, or their call to actions, and that kind of violates the first rule of marketing: never lie. And then they're also, recognizing that there's so much press with regard to how to gain rankings and how SEO works, that they're looking at the middle of the page, and they're looking at reviews from consumers to make their judgment call with who to do business with. So that leads to another discussion point with regard to content creation and constantly creating value. But that's going to be a topic for another time. I am coming up on my appointment and have got to run. Hope everybody has a good day. And if you have any other questions, visit me at www.yourfloridabusinessbroker.com or call me 321-287-0349. Thanks.